What if the secret to a sharp, clear mind well into your 80s and 90s has nothing to do with expensive supplements, complicated medical protocols, or the latest pharmaceutical breakthrough? What if the answer has been hiding in plain sight, practiced every single morning by elderly men and women in a small chain of islands in the Pacific, people who routinely reach 100 years old with their memories completely intact, their minds sharp, their spirits unbroken? Researchers from around the world have traveled to Okinawa, Japan, specifically to understand why this population experiences dementia rates dramatically lower than anywhere else on Earth. And what they discovered wasn't a drug, it wasn't a gene, it was a morning routine. 6 specific habits practiced consistently before noon that appear to protect the aging brain in ways modern medicine is only beginning to understand. If you are over 60, what you are about to hear could genuinely change the trajectory of your cognitive health. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will know exactly what to do tomorrow morning. The first thing you need to understand is that Okinawan elders do not wake up and immediately reach for their phones. They do not turn on the news. They do not lie in bed scrolling through notifications. The first moments of their morning are quiet, intentional, and remarkably consistent. That consistency, researchers now believe, is itself one of the most powerful forces protecting their brains. A 2021 study from Tohoku University found that older adults who maintained consistent morning routines showed 34% less cortisol dysregulation than those with irregular schedules. Why does that matter? Because chronic cortisol elevation, the kind caused by stress and unpredictability, directly damages the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for forming and storing memories. The Okinawan morning is, at its foundation, an act of neurological protection, and it begins the moment they open their eyes. The very first habit is something so simple that most Westerners dismiss it entirely. Okinawan elders drink green tea, specifically a variety called matcha, or locally grown Okinawan tea, within the first 30 minutes of waking. Not coffee, not juice, tea. This is not a casual preference, it is a deeply ingrained ritual that carries profound biological consequences. Green tea contains a compound called EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, which is one of the most extensively studied neuroprotective substances in nutritional science. A landmark study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition followed over 1,000 Japanese adults aged 70 and older for several years. Those who drank 2 or more cups of green tea daily had a 64% lower risk of cognitive impairment. 64%? The EGCG in green tea reduces the buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain, the same plaques that are found in overwhelming quantities in Alzheimer's patients. It also reduces neuroinflammation and improves blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. Starting tomorrow morning, replace your first cup of coffee with green tea. You do not have to eliminate coffee entirely, but making green tea your first drink of the day is one of the simplest and most evidence-backed decisions you can make for your brain right now. The second habit happens shortly after, and it involves movement, but not the kind of intense, gym-based exercise you might be imagining. Every morning across Japan, a gentle piano melody plays on national radio. It signals the beginning of Radio Taiso, a flowing, 3-minute sequence of 13 coordinated stretches and movements that Japan has practiced collectively since 1928. Okinawan elders do this without thinking. It is as automatic as brushing teeth. What researchers discovered about this practice goes far beyond simple flexibility. A study from Osaka University examined brain activity during radio taiso and found that the coordinated bilateral movements, meaning movements that require both sides of the body to work together in sequence, activated the prefrontal cortex and cerebellum simultaneously. This cross-hemisphere activation is essentially a workout for your brain's coordination and planning centers. More importantly, a 2020 study in the Journal of Physical Therapy Science found that seniors who performed daily morning movement sequences showed measurably slower hippocampal shrinkage over a 5-year period compared to sedentary controls. The hippocampus naturally shrinks with age. Coordinated morning movement appears to slow that process significantly. You can find Radio Taiso videos online in minutes. The full sequence takes 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Do it tomorrow morning after your green tea, and you will have already done more for your brain before 7 a.m. than most people do all day. The third habit is one that Western culture has almost completely abandoned, and its absence may be costing us dearly. Okinawan elders eat breakfast together, not alone in front of a screen. Together with family members, neighbors, or members of what Okinawans call their moai, a lifelong social support group that functions like an extended chosen family. The social dimension of the morning meal is not incidental. It is neurologically essential. Research from the University of Michigan found that just 10 minutes of social interaction in the morning significantly improved working memory and executive function for the rest of that day. Loneliness, by contrast, has been identified by the National Institute on Aging as an independent risk factor for dementia, increasing risk by as much as 50% in adults over 65. The Okinawan practice of communal morning meals creates daily micro-doses of social connection that appear to keep the brain's social cognition networks active and healthy. If you live alone, this habit requires creativity but not complexity. A morning phone call with a family member, or brief conversation with a neighbor, even a consistent gathering with friends once or twice a week begins to replicate this effect. The brain does not require elaborate social events. It requires regularity. The fourth habit is one that neuroscientists are now calling one of the most powerful dementia prevention tools ever studied, and it has no English equivalent. Okinawan elders spend the first part of their morning in conscious connection with their ikigai. This Japanese concept translates roughly as the reason you get up in the morning, the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what gives you a sense of purpose. In Okinawa, ikigai is not a philosophical abstraction. It is a daily practice. Elders tend their gardens with intention. They teach younger community members their crafts. They care for grandchildren. They maintain roles in their community that give them a clear sense of being needed. A 25-year study conducted by the National Center for Geriatrics and Gerontology in Japan followed nearly 44,000 adults and found that those with a strong sense of ikigai had significantly lower rates of cardiovascular disease and dementia, and they lived measurably longer. The brain, when it lacks purpose, begins to disengage. Cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to compensate for damage and delay the symptoms of dementia, is built through engaged, purposeful mental activity. Spend 5 minutes tomorrow morning writing down your answer to one simple question. What is one thing I can do today that will matter to someone or something beyond myself? That answer is the beginning of your ikigai practice. The fifth habit involves something Okinawan elders do outside, in natural light, before 9 in the morning. They tend their gardens, they walk to local markets, they sit in the sun while drinking their tea. This early morning light exposure is not merely pleasant, it is biologically critical. Your brain's circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs sleep, hormone release, and cellular repair, is set almost entirely by light. Specifically, it is calibrated by exposure to natural light in the first hour after waking. A 2022 study from the Salk Institute found that disrupted circadian rhythms accelerate the accumulation of tau proteins in the brain, one of the two primary biological markers of Alzheimer's disease. Okinawan elders, without knowing the molecular biology, have been protecting their circadian rhythms every morning for their entire lives simply by going outside. Melatonin cycles are properly regulated, sleep architecture improves, and during sleep, the brain's glymphatic system, essentially its internal cleaning mechanism, flushes out the metabolic waste products that accumulate throughout the day, including amyloid beta proteins. 10 minutes of outdoor light within 1 hour of waking is enough to produce measurable circadian benefits. You do not need sunshine. Even overcast natural daylight contains the full-spectrum light frequencies your brain's suprachiasmatic nucleus requires to set your clock correctly. Open your door tomorrow morning. Step outside. Even briefly, your brain will register the difference immediately. For decades, researchers assumed the default mode network was simply the brain at rest. Recent studies have overturned that assumption completely. The default mode network is where autobiographical memory is consolidated, where creative problem-solving occurs, and where the brain integrates emotional experiences into coherent narratives. A study from Yale University found that adults who regularly allowed their minds to rest in an unfocused, observational state showed greater connectivity between the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, exactly the connection that deteriorates first in Alzheimer's disease. The Okinawan elder sitting quietly with morning tea, watching birds, listening to the neighborhood wake up is not wasting time. They are performing neural maintenance that no supplement can replicate. Tomorrow morning, before you open any screen, sit for 5 minutes and do nothing specific. Look out a window. Listen to ambient sounds. Allow your thoughts to wander without directing them. This is not laziness. This is one of the most sophisticated things your brain can do. What makes the Okinawan morning so remarkable is not any single one of these habits. It is the combination. Green tea provides neuroprotective compounds during a period when the brain is transitioning from sleep to wakefulness and is maximally receptive to their effects. Radio-Taiso activates cross-hemisphere coordination before daily cognitive demands begin. Communal meals build social cognition networks. Ikigai engagement fires the brain's reward and motivation circuits, generating neurotrophic factors that literally support neuron survival. Outdoor light sets the circadian rhythm that governs every downstream neurological process, and the quiet stillness consolidates memory and maintains the neural architecture that all other habits depend on. Together, these 6 habits create a morning environment in which the aging brain is protected, nourished, connected, and given genuine reason to remain sharp. You do not have to move to Okinawa. You do not need to overhaul your entire life overnight. But you can begin tomorrow. Brew green tea first. Step outside for 10 minutes. Move your body gently for 3 minutes. Call someone you love. Write down one reason your presence matters today, and then sit quietly with yourself before the world begins to ask anything of you. These are not grand gestures. They are small, consistent acts of respect for the most extraordinary organ you have ever been given. The Okinawan elders who practice these habits are not doing something mystical or genetically exclusive. They are simply giving their brains what brains have always needed: consistency, connection, purpose, nourishment, light, and rest. The science is clear, the path is simple, the morning is waiting.